Welcome back to another powerful episode of Leading Our Own Way right here on YouTube. So today we're diving into a conversation that's going to expand your mind, challenge your perspectives, and maybe even inspire you to change your life. Now remember, this is split up into 5 parts, Monday through Friday, so make sure you tune into all of them. My guest though, however, Katerina Levanttar, is here to talk about some of the biggest topics we all need to face. A few to cover are why real human connection is more important than ever, how men are struggling in silence and how we can change that, the journey from chasing success to chasing purpose, and the unexpected ways art, sound, and mirrors can help you heal, and what Mexico taught her about living and dying with joy. Trust me, this is not one to miss, so stay locked in for all 5 parts because each one will take you deeper into Katrina's incredible story. And hey, before we jump in, hit that button, hit the like button, hit the follow button, subscribe, and so on, and let me know in the comments what's one thing you do to reconnect with yourself. Now let's dive right into part 1 and enjoy the show with Katrina. Welcome to Leading Our Own Way. I'm your host, Andrew White, and this is the podcast that unveils captivating narratives of resilience and personal triumph. This podcast is for anyone seeking inspiration and insights on overcoming life's challenges. Follow and subscribe, and then we can lead together forever. Welcome, Katerina Levanttar, to Leading Our Own Way. Thanks for joining me. How are you this morning?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me, Andrew.
It's a pleasure. It's absolutely a pleasure. Well, it's morning to me, but I believe it's the afternoon all the way over in Mexico. What time is it over there?
That's right. So let's see what time it is. I think it's about 3 p.m.
Oh, wow. The whole day is gone. I won't tell you what's going to happen in the future. Don't worry.
Thank you. Yes, I'm just gonna stay in curiosity here.
Yes, good place to be. Thanks for joining me on the podcast, and I apologize for all the mishaps that we had before the recording. We've already been sat here for an hour, everybody. I had technical issues. They're the issues of doing a podcast remotely. One day, hopefully, I can fly you out to the office, to the studio, and we'll do it live.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah,
that would be amazing. I'd love to be in a position where we can do that. But yeah, once again, thanks for joining me on my journey. It's very special to me, and it's such an honor. I've known you for a little while. Tell us, what is your mission? You're on a bit of a mission. How are you leading your own way, Katrina?
I'm on a mission. There are a couple of missions, I think, right now.
Yeah.
I'm on a mission, first of all, personal mission to live a life of joy. Enjoy the moments that I have here in this body, on this earth. And the mission that I want to share with people is to empower men, to support and help men. And I could talk about this more extensively later on, but let's say this is a summary of the mission for the men. And then through my work with Sam, I love to share with people a little bit of magic of this life, just to give a glimpse of magic, a glimpse of a different reality, of the beauty of joy, and that makes me really excited to wake up every day.
Yeah, beautiful. What does you've just mentioned the day. What does a typical day look like for you then?
It's no typical day. It used to be a typical day when I used to work on Wall Street. And every day looked like, I'd say any movie you take where you just go to the office day after day and it's the same. Right now, I'd say it's a typical morning because I have a morning routine, or morning ritual. Let's call it the ritual. And that would usually be meditation, yoga practice. It would be taking my dog on a walk, and would be making breakfast for myself. So that's my typical morning, and that I know for sure is gonna happen. Everything else is, it all depends on what it is I'm doing, what I'm focusing on, and where I'm at. So, and I like it this way. It keeps me interested. It keeps me on my toes, and keeps life interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you have a morning routine, and we talk about morning routines a lot on this podcast because we feel it's crystal clear that it's an important part of, I think, of humanity to be able to set the tone for the day and lead with positivity for the day. It's something I've focused on heavily in the last 3 years too. My viewers pretty much know what I do every morning, so I don't need to repeat that. But you just said your day doesn't, you don't have a typical day, but you do many different things. One, supporting men and aligning with men's masculinity, and you do a lot of other creative aspects, avenue. You have other creative avenues as well, don't you? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So my day depends, I guess, let's say, on the work that I have and the inspiration. So I'm also an artist, so the inspiration comes um, sporadically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't force it, and whenever it comes, I need to go into my tools and my creative space and create. Because for me, it's a very important thing of living from the place of energy. Because if I suppress it, this energy is going to go away, or if I don't pay attention to it. So part of the day goes into creating my artwork. Part of the day goes into talking to people like you. Part of the day goes into sometimes working with sound and holding journeys for people, or supporting men in my I call it training now, in training. So that's if I'm at home. If I'm traveling, obviously it's a little bit different. So, and then there is time also to go and sit in a coffee shop and work on my computer or read a book, which I also value very much. Or to call my friends, because all my friends all over the world. So to catch up with my friends, to check on my friends and see on my family and see how people are doing. And I feel like this is very, very important to stay connected with humans.
Mm-hmm.
So the human connection and human family that we have is what I think gives our life color, meaning, it gives it warmth, it gives it support, and that community feeling. And when we don't feel alone, all of a sudden we can conquer anything we want. And not to feel alone, you don't need hundreds of people. You just need a couple solid, authentic people who are there for you and you're there for them. And so that takes attention, that takes time, that takes effort. It's just like any relationship. So for me, the relationships are not just the romantic relationships. Relationships are between humans. And so going away from the concept of constantly being in a romantic relationship and being focus of life, where the focus is on human relationships with human in your life.
Yeah.
So I'm doing those patterns, I'm doing those conditioning beliefs and focusing on humans. Just like a lot of times, because we're not in relationships, a lot of times being miserable that we're not in that in a romantic relationship and been miserable for no reason, really. So again,
Yeah.
bringing yourself back to joy.
Yeah, I completely agree. Do you think I talk about connection quite a lot on this podcast? It ultimately comes down to the art of connection. You know, the guest that I filmed with yesterday was a big advocate for men's mental health. He lost a friend to suicide, and he now travels Australia, and he talks around men's behaviour as well. So, domestic violence, he wants to prevent that from happening, and he talks about the care for men's mental health. He has men's circles. It's beautiful. I showed some pictures so people can tune into that, and I can see how you two kind of align, but in a different way. He Where do you think the I suppose the art of connection in human baseline human ability to connect? Do you think it's the all-time low? And I'll give my view in a minute, but
Mm-hmm.
because I obviously live in a different country to you and we'll have different perspectives as well for sure. But is there something going wrong in the world right now in terms of connection of why you do what you do?
I'm not sure if we call it wrong. I
Hmm.
think it is what it is.
Hmm.
It's just the time we're in. There's been a lot of things happening, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of advancement happened in technology, for example, in the last 50 years. Me growing up, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a home phone, right? Which was for every family member and usually for parents because kids were just little to even have access to phones.
Yeah.
So the advancement, such a rapid advancement that we've been going through, thanks to technology, and I do love technology
Me too.
because it's
Yeah.
an amazing thing, right?
Mm.
Um, but I think for a human brain and for a human being to catch up and to adjust to such a rapid shift, because up to 50 years ago, we lived pretty much the same. Hunter-gatherers, we were at factories, right? We were doing like handwritten letters, and that was for a very long time.
Mm.
And so, such a rapid change just in our lifetimes, right?
Huge.
Our brain is not made to process information in at such a speed. It's not prepared for it, and it also there is an overload of information. It's impossible for our brain to intake all of that and process that and make sense of that and make sense of what is true or not, because we're used to reading newspapers back then or listening to our grandparents who would tell us stories, and we would trust these stories. I'm not sure if all of them were correct, but we would trust them as true. Now,
Sure.
on top of everything, we can't trust that it's true. So there's a lot of confusion going on, and it's easy to withdraw.
Mm.
It's very easy to withdraw as a self-preservation, possibly, as
Mm.
possibly overwhelm. And also there is, and from that, and from also lack of education, of training how to connect with other humans. So there are a lot of factors that come into that, and that's why loneliness is all-time high.
Yeah.
That's why the rates of mental health are all-time high, because confusion has happened. And confusion is difficult for humans. We don't like to be in confusion. We like it to be certain because of the survival again. I love the confusion because I think something is reshuffling in this time when confusion happens. So it's good because you're questioning your life, you're questioning your beliefs, and you open your mind to new beliefs. But it's uncomfortable, and nobody likes discomfort, right? So I think training is lacking. As humans, I believe we need training to be human. We need to learn how to be, how to approach another human, how to speak to them, how to connect to them. And that all comes from training from, say, adults or schools, and also from self-esteem, which also comes from very related to that same training.
Mm. Yeah. It's interesting you bring up the information and how our brains can process it, because I've read a few case studies, and apparently we're obtaining the amount of information in one day that a human 100 years ago would have done in their whole lifetime. And to me, that is I can't comprehend that, And I've pulled myself away from reading the news. I don't flick on articles anymore. I'm still not where I want to be in terms of being on my phone. I don't touch my phone as much as I used to. I don't have notifications on my phone, so it's step by step. But, I still wake up and look at the phone first. I don't want to do that. I want it to be outside of the bedroom, and so I can get up at my own space. And, I don't want to. I think we go around 80,000 thoughts a day, give or take. And I don't want the first 5 to 10,000 taken up by negativity or misdirection or confusion. And I think that's why going back to our morning routine is super important. So yeah, you've made me rethink a few things. I've probably said the word wrong many times. I have been believing we're going in the wrong direction in terms of technology, and it's not that we're doing it wrong. I think in the way we're using it. I love technology. I love turning the lights off by using Siri in the house. I like it to be efficient. However, I think we are becoming clouded, and I'm going off my own personal experience and obviously the guest's experience too. I was massively brain fogged, and that was not to do with technology necessarily. It was due to lack of connection that I was seeking in the workplace, and their own issues, and that's a whole different podcast. But with you, then, do men with the men supporting of men side of things? Do men come to you and book appointments? Do they reach out to you for support? How does that look for you with your appointments?
It varies. It
Does it? Okay.
varies. A lot of times it happens in social setting. People ask, "What do I do?"
Yeah.
Or my friends introduce me, or my friends, or somebody who I worked with talks about it. And usually the reactions are also different. Sometimes it's curiosity, sometimes it's just silence, sometimes it's this type of like distancing. Depends on each human. And that's why I find that we do need to be patient and compassionate and kind with each other, because we don't know where another human is coming from. Very often when I start speaking about men and how difficult it is now in I men listen, and then sometime later they say, "I'm struggling with depression or anxiety." That was not something that man said in the beginning of the conversation, because he needed to feel safe. It's not safe for men to be vulnerable in this world. It's dangerous, and you can't open up to everyone. There are very few people that men can open up to, because it's not a patriarchal, let's call it a patriarchal culture that we've all are part of, we've been and we still are. It doesn't allow men to talk about their feelings even if they want to. Many men don't even know how to. Those who want to, they don't have a safe space for it. And I feel like it's a very human thing. It's not a man or women thing. It's a human thing to have feelings and to be able to share them, because it's part of being authentic. That is actually what courage is. That is, feelings are scary for many people, and men are the majority of them. And what is so scary? And I guess if it's scary, then it takes courage, right? So I like to change the perception of how we look at things. And that's how we remove stigma of lots of concepts that we grow up with, or we used to, or we listen to. And that also takes open mind. That also takes courage to stand up and say, I'm willing to look at this differently. I'm willing to change the concept of how I've seen it before. I'm willing to say, maybe I didn't think about it in this way. Not saying wrong or right, just different, right? And I feel like that compassion and that kindness that we can all show to each other, that's missing because of attention deficit, because of overload of information, because of fear, because of some social anxiety that a lot of people now have. And masks come up, and masks are not authenticity. It's not kindness. It's not compassion. So now there's a lot of different things come into play, into why we're in a place we're at. And I think it takes each of us to say, well, I want to be different.
Yeah. So if somebody was listening here, and I suppose you're bringing in your own technique here, you'll have your own way of making a man feel safe when you do meet them, so they can open up to you and feel vulnerable themselves. If somebody was listening to this episode and they're struggling, I'm connecting with my guest yesterday as well. He basically, his friend was struggling. He said a few words and he put his hand on his shoulder and he said, "You'll be all right, mate." And he didn't think too much about it. And then that friend went off and unfortunately killed himself, and he's lived with that pain for the rest of his life. And that's why he does the men's circles and the mental health. And it's devastating. But that scenario could be happening every single day, and I'm sure it is. But if somebody was listening to this episode, and I'm trying to connect you two together here a little bit in my own mind, if somebody was listening to this episode and they know or they feel something's not sitting right in a friend, let's go with a male, what piece of advice could you give to that person to that person to, sorry, I'm repeating myself because I'm trying to reprocess the question in my head.
Yeah.
What piece of information or advice could you give to that friend that they could help their friend that they feel is struggling to open up, if you know what I mean. Wow, that was just the beginning. Katerina is here all week dropping gems about the power of connection and why we need to rethink how we show up for one another. But here's where it gets even deeper. Next up, we're talking about her journey from Wall Street to Mexico. How did she go from living the life of a busy city in New York City to a life of energy, healing, and joy and self-discovery in Mexico? You don't want to miss this one. We're going to be talking about that all week, but more gems come in around life and purpose and connection. It's just fascinating. I learned so much. Drop a comment below with your biggest takeaway so far. Make sure you're subscribed and following the show, but part 2 is coming up tomorrow. And if the weeks have already passed, you can just click on it right now. Follow the playlist and they'll continue the whole thing. Enjoy. We'll see you soon. Join us tomorrow to hear more from today's incredible guests and learn valuable insights to help you lead your own way. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you then.